Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for all being here on a Sunday where you could be doing other more fun things, but that shows the hardcore activists that you are. So thank you so much for being here, all of you taking the time to come and speak about issues that are dear to your heart. So my name is Daniel Casa, by the way, and I'm a founding member of Independent California. And what I would like to address real quick is the elephant in the room, which we're going to remove to outside. And the elephant in the room is obviously the impeachment hearings are going on. That's on everybody's mind. And so we decided with Marcus to do a panel at the end of the day so that we can all state our concerns or all our opinions on that. But we're not. This is about different panels, and so we're not going to speak about that here at the table. We're going to speak about the issues that are outlined here that Marcus has outlined. So, just so you know, we will be addressing that at the end because we all want to talk about it. But for now, until the end, please just stick to the topics. If you have questions, please have your questions be related to the speaker and not go off on tangents. And so we're going to give like a certain amount of time to speakers so that we can move it on, because last time we experienced that everybody has so much to say, but we want to make it as concise as possible when you come and speak so that we can give everybody a chance to talk. So that being said, let me introduce Marcus.
Could you ask the speakers also to repeat questions that are coming from the audience? We don't have good mics in the audience.
Okay, yes, that's a good suggestion from Hannah. If you want to repeat the question, because we might not hear it on camera, that somebody is asking you in the audience, that would be great. Thank you. And so Marcus, come on up.
I want to thank everybody for coming out. This is our second of the CALEXIT conferences. They're going very well. We just started this recently because we found that there's a stereotype of people who support this idea that just does not match the actual people who are here. The stereotype is that we're all potheads, brain dead, egoists, vacant in the brain. And I got to tell you, if you were here last night at our debates, that is the 180-degree, complete, total, nothing related to the actual stereotype reality of who we are. People in the CALEXIT movement are intelligent, passionate, opinionated, well-read, and highly informed. And that is not the image in the media. So we have realized that we need to correct the image on our own because we cannot wait or rely on others to do it for us. This is the second one of the conferences, and I want to point out how quickly we've grown. We just did this 2 months ago. Now we're on our second one. We have a presidential candidate, an assembly candidate, a Senate candidate, and possibly a member from Congress showing up. Additionally, we've already been watched by the LA Times and other reporters. We think that if you're watching this and you're willing to come out and talk about California, talk about CALEXIT, we can continue to grow and we can get the narrative that's accurate out. I'm going to read an excerpt from a letter to the editor that was published today by me in the Santa Maria Times. The Santa Maria Times recently this week talked about maybe we need to re-engage in the discussion about CALEXIT. They were referring to the fact that Donald Trump and the federal government have revoked or are attempting to revoke our clean air quality standards. But they were also talking about the fact that California seems to act like a nation and decided this week that it's going to change the laws on college basketball students and if they can receive money directly from sponsors. Every other college in America said, don't do that. We have our own organization on if students can get sponsored. And California said, yeah, we're just going to do it on our own. And we think you'll follow us. And we kind of don't care what you think. So there are just as many people upset in America at California acting like a nation about our air quality standards as there are about our opinions and takes on college basketball. Mm-hmm. And there are just as many Californians who say, right on, Let's do our own college basketball thing. As there are Californians who say, right on. We've always had our own air quality standards since the 60s. So what I point to is when people say, hey, that's a crazy idea, California becoming a nation, I say, been asleep in a cave? Perhaps you've been in a coma. Have you been watching the news? Did you see how we said we're going to launch our own satellite this week? How we're going to do our own college basketball regulations? How we just banned another American state from anybody in California going to them because of their discriminatory policies? And have you seen how we did air quality regulations? So we're already moving that way. Whether or not you want to see it, whether or not the news wants to pick up on it. I'm not making this up. We should not be the only people covering this. The governor should be talking about it. The assembly should be talking about it. The mainstream press should be talking about it. And they are not. Why are they not bringing this up? Is it because it's fake? Well, no. All these things were out in the news over the last month. It only takes a reporter 30 seconds to do an interview and look for the title California Acting Like a Nation to see everything I already brought up. But no one in the media will do that. It's almost like they don't want to acknowledge the gigantic bear in the room. So, with that, let me give you an excerpt on why we need to CalExit. The news has, and I love the media, I love our liberal press, I've met many great reporters. When I criticize the media, it's because I'm challenging California press to do better. I know you can do better. I've met you, you're good. So, here's an excerpt off the Santa Maria Times editorial I did. 2 years ago, the Sacramento Bee editorial board, meaning all the top reporters for the Sacramento Bee newspaper, that's the main newspaper that covers the Capitol here in Sacramento, wrote an article saying, you don't need to do CalExit. I know Trump's bad. I know he may push federal laws on us. Don't do that. Better yet, let's use federalism. And I quote from the Sacramento Bee 2 years ago, a more constructive would be a statewide effort to stand strong and defend our values and economy against what is sure to be an onslaught of hostile federal legislation. Sacramento Bee 2 years ago. Trump's promise to dismantle the Affordable Care Act stands in to slash billions of federal Medicaid dollars from the state budget and can cancel health insurance for millions of low-income Californians. Additionally, Trump's vow to start a trade war with China would slash California's agricultural exports and devastate port traffic. His immigration policies would be a gut to the key source of skilled tech labor and the ability to hire engineers on HB1 visas. And the Central Valley harvest, where I'm personally from, would grind to a standstill without seasonal labor. Additionally, blue state elites should stop plotting exit strategies and crashing Canadian immigration websites and get busy pitching in. You don't need to CalExit, you just need to work hard. So, I asked the Sacramento Bee if they would publish my editorial. They said no. It's too late, 2 years ago. Well, that's funny. You took a stance, and now we actually have the data to see if you were right. Santa Maria Times is willing to do it. Let's take a look. So, Trump did start a trade war. We already have lost $5.3 billion to our economy, in addition to $1.6 billion coming up. We have already lost on potential of 248,000 jobs. That's 250,000 jobs lost, $6 billion lost, already in a trade war. So I guess Sacramento Bee was dead wrong about that point. Looks like resistance didn't protect our economy. But let's take a look. Trump did deny workers. There has been less skilled visa workers since 2015. There has been a 56% reduction in the labor force for ag. So I guess we did fail to protect our economy, both high-tech and ag, through our, quote, resistance. Funny you don't see anyone in the newspaper bring that up. These are facts from mainstream news. Almost like they don't want to. Trump did damage our healthcare system by removing the Cost Sharing Reductions Act, and the federal district court dismissed a lawsuit by California and 18 other states. So I guess we did lose on protecting the healthcare package. And we did lose on protecting ag labor. And we did lose on protecting high-tech workers. And we did lose on billions of dollars to our economy. No one brings that up. So maybe we were able to protect our values. You know, you have people like the LA Times and PolitiFact saying it's mostly true that California was able to protect its values. Here's a quote. California lawmakers, activists, and judges begin to give citizens another potential outlet for their indignation over the election. Legal scholars and non-secession supporting Californians I spoke to emphasize the legal ways that California can toe the line of what is permitted constitutionally. Let's take a look. You failed to protect minorities. It is now federal law that women and minorities do not have the right to file class action lawsuits against corporations for discrimination. That's federal law. You cannot do anything about that. Supreme Court said that's cool. That means you're done. You did not protect minorities from the police. It is now federal law that the police can accidentally kick down your door, shoot you in your house, and you can do nothing about it. As long as they say it was an accident and they made a mistake. That's federal law. You can't do anything about that. By the way, the Supreme Court overruled a California case to make that law. Anybody hear about that in the news? That's the point. How come people in CALEXIT aren't aware that we have already failed to protect minorities? Because the news is doing a horrible job pointing out that the resist movement flat out failed. But there's more. You failed, California, to protect the LGBTQ. It turns out they can ban certain parts of the LGBTQ from the military. And it turns out it is legal under federal law that you can do nothing about for a business to discriminate against anybody who's LGBTQ and wants something on their cake. So it is legal to discriminate against LGBTQ. It is legal to ban them from the military. Your resist movement did nothing. But let's go on. We talk a lot about how we're an undocumented sanctuary city. My grandfather was here illegally. He started a business, helped disadvantaged youth do well, raised a family, and I'm the product of it. Wow, what a horrible thing, right? I shouldn't be here. Well, let's take a look. It turns out that it is legal at the Supreme Court to do racial profiling for immigration policing, and that the federal government is okay to legally profile racially Latinos with impunity as long as they're in what's known as the Homeland Security Border District. I would encourage all of you to look up the Homeland Security Coastal Border District. Homeland Security can do whatever they want within a 100-mile distance from the coast. That's 80% of the landmass in California. If you're Latino and an immigration official looks at you and says, looks like you're undocumented, yes, they can grab you and detain you and then say, I'm sorry, were you in the Adelanto death camp for 2 weeks? My bad, you can be released. By the way, you don't get to sue or do anything or complain for being ripped out of your car and put into a concentration camp for 2 weeks. And then they all have to do is go, I'm sorry, dude, I totally thought you were undocumented. Were you a citizen? My bad. Remember, they already locked up a citizen for a month. And that guy lost 30 pounds and almost died. He was a citizen, and they got to say, oops, we couldn't tell he was a citizen for a full month. My bad. He gets to do nothing because that's federal law, California. Guess we didn't protect him, huh? With our resist movement. Guess it totally failed him. Oh, there's another guy who's dead because he was put in Adelanto. Guess we failed him and his whole family. He's dead now. The resist movement will not bring him back to life. But what did we do for other undocumented immigrants? Let's take a look, because I was there at the resist movement. I was called crazy for saying we need to CalExit. No, we can do this. Let's take a look. California failed to stop funding for the border wall. You failed to stop construction of the border wall. You failed to punish companies who will work with Trump to build the wall. You failed to ensure that 2/3 of your police force actually follow your sanctuary city policies and are not working with ICE officials. You failed to prevent undocumented immigrants from being held in unlimited detention. Yes, that's federal law now. You failed to prevent undocumented immigrants from literally being placed in concentration camps where they die. You failed. They're dead. You failed to prevent the federal government from being able to punish you by withholding funds because you want to protect your citizens. Wow, I was told we're going to shut down that wall, we're going to imprison him, we're going to protect our undocumented, we're going to push back on ICE. Fail, fail. You failed. Why am I bringing this up? How come this isn't in the news? These are mainstream sources. Nobody talks about how we have failed the undocumented. But it doesn't end there. Let's take a look. We have also failed legal immigrants. Are you Muslim? You don't get to come here. Federal law. California can do nothing about that. Perhaps you'd like to file for asylum. Tough. Federal law. It's now harder to do that. California can do nothing about that. So we failed Muslims. We failed LGBTQ. We failed regular immigrants. We failed the undocumented. We failed minorities. We failed people afraid of being gunned down in their home. That's federal law. You can do nothing about it, regardless of what your governor says, until you are an independent nation. So if you like being in a failed state that cannot protect you, do nothing. Keep going. If you think that we should be protecting the undocumented, women, LGBTQ, immigrants, Muslims, then perhaps it's time to rise up. And if you think that removing Donald Trump will fix everything, I'd like to point out something that Thomas Carruthers said. He is an international expert and has traveled around the world studying democracies in transition around the planet. He recently wrote an article saying, to the extent that polarization in the U.S. comes from the bottom rather than the top, political elites cannot easily reverse or moderate it, even if they wanted to. The lesson is clear. Trump's eventual departure may temper America's polarization fever, but it will not cure it. That's from an international legal scholar. And what he's pointing out is that when you have highly divisive populations, if it wasn't that way before a political leader took over, then yes, when you remove that leader, things go back to normal. But if perhaps you've had, say, 40% of the country, say 35 states, since George W. Bush over the last 25 years talk about how we don't like Muslims, we don't like gays, why do these Mexicans speak Spanish? Then what this international law expert is saying is you're screwed. It ain't going to change. Go ahead and get rid of Trump. Who's going to go change all the MAGA hat people to change their minds? They're just going to go, I never thought of racism before Trump, and now he's gone. I'm a progressive. I'm born again. I suddenly believe women have the same rights as men. I have family that believe in this stuff. They talked this way before Trump. They aren't going to go quietly into the night. So what's your plan? Because the Senate is still majority Republican controlled. And if you think it's going to get better, I'd like to point out Credit Suisse worker UBS. There's a Joaquin Clement. He's an expert in international finance. He studied all of the states, and he says political polarization at the state level is just as bad at the national level. And unless somebody's going to go back to every single state and undo it, it concerns me a lot of the political polarization and one-party rule you have in more and more states. No one's talking about that. It's we get rid of Trump. That suddenly everybody stops acting racist across America? Suddenly states stop being Republican-controlled districts? Well, if you don't have a plan for that, you don't have a plan, California. And with that, we'll start our next panel discussion. Thank you.